Thanks everyone for attending and our State of LeanLaw 2021 meetup. This is one of the, I think, more fun meetups of the year for me in that I get to bring all of my colleagues and cohorts into this conversation, ask them to contribute. We had just a tremendous year in LeanLaw this past 2020, and even though it's been a tough year for folks, as a country and with all the shenanigans and other things happening, we fortunately have weathered the storm quite well in LeanLaw, and our community and our company has really binded together to have a terrific year, and we're really grateful where we are, and we're really grateful to all the people that supported us. And today's meeting, I'm just going to jump into the agenda, is really just to talk about, LeanLaw and to help the group, help the community understand what we did last year and what our vision is for the future. Many of you are our partners, are our friends, are our clients, are our customers, and your success is deeply tied with our success. So we wanted to take a moment and bring all of the cohorts from our company into this conversation and just share with you our vision for the future and talk a little bit about what we got done. We're gonna, speaking today, we see the agenda here, and speaking today, I have our CEO, Gary Allen, who will talk a little bit about the strategy and direction of the company. I have my colleague, Fred Willerup, our CTO, talking about the future of the product. I have our Director of Marketing, Mamie Cruz, who will be focused on the LAP program, and Chase Sullivan, who is our Manager of Client Success, who will talk about support, client success, topics of that nature. I have to admit people because Zoom allows me that, so excuse the moment. So that's our guest. We're going to talk about company growth, development update, that's Fred's, our pros, and support update. So that's the agenda for today. And we want this to be as interactive as possible, so feel free to use the chat to ask questions. If you have questions along the way or make comments, I'm asking most people to stay muted because it gets a little disruptive with everyone speaking. I also want to say that this is a new format for us. Historically, we've done this where people sort of just give a presentation, and in today's meetup, I wanted it to be a little bit more interactive amongst our team. So I'm going to be acting as your host, and there will be kind of mini presentations from each person, but then there'll be some interactions and conversations between us. So if we're a little clumsy in our handoffs, please excuse us. We didn't intend to be perfect today. We intended to just have some thoughtful conversations. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please ask. We're really excited to hear that. So I'm going to turn this over to have Gary Allen start with us. He's going to kind of focus on some team introductions. So Gary, jump in, head in.
All right, thanks, Jonathan, and welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be talking to you today about where we've been this last year, and I'm going to start by doing something. I want to just put a face to a name for people who aren't familiar with the folks on our team. Really quickly, just in a couple minutes. So Jonathan, could you put up the first slide? So
yeah.
Let's start with the founders. So as some of you may know, I'm the CEO. I was sort of I'm the one who came up with this at the very beginning. I was a practicing lawyer who had a lot of pain in the software tools I was using in my practice. Our CTO, as you probably know, is Fred Willerup. He comes to us via Denmark and Hewlett Packard, and he's the one who's in charge of the product. I'm in charge of the company. And then Jonathon, who you all are familiar with, comes to us from a long startup background, and he's in charge of the customer. Could you see the next slide? So we have at the top of our engineering team, of course, Fred, and they're really happy to add Ashok Galal, who lives in Boise, Idaho, but comes to us from Nepal. And they lead our engineering team with some other folks working from that along with them. Next slide. And this is the support team. So those of you who are working in the product are probably familiar with these folks. Jonathon, again, part of his duties is he has an IT background, and so he had built the support team. and kind of as at the top of the pyramid there. I'm sure if you've had support calls on LeanLaw, you've talked with Chase Sullivan, who you'll hear from later. Chase, oh, somebody should mute, please. Thank you. So Chase joined us almost at the beginning of LeanLaw, and if you've talked to him, you know his calm manner to walk you through any type of support question. And then earlier this year, we were really excited to add Chris Richards, who joins us as from Adderant, which is a timekeeping or a legal timekeeping billing tool. And he was one of their senior customer success people and really knows this area. So we're excited to have him join our team. Next slide, please. And in terms of, we combine sales and onboarding here at LeanLaw. And so the folks who help us do that, they're kind of to get you successfully on, get your clients and you successfully on the product. Jonathon also leads that team. Heather Mears is our sales associate. You might have interacted with her at some point. And then Tracie Todd has a strong accounting background and helps with dozens of firms every month to get onboarded onto LeanLaw. Next slide. Then there's our marketing team. So that's in my bailiwick in the company. Elizabeth Rogers has been with us from the beginning as our content writer. She's really prolific and helps us get our message out there in ways that people understand. And then another really exciting ad in 2020 was Mamie Cruz, who you'll hear from a little later. She joined us from Arlington, Virginia, and is our marketing director. She was a founder of another startup and really understands the business to business customer. So we're excited to welcome her to the team. Next slide. So one of the things I wanted to touch on is just how our company is growing. As you're probably aware, we're a young company, but we've grown quickly over the years for those of you who've been with us a little while. So now we serve between 400 and 500 law firms with about 1,700 users in those firms. So, we've gotten to have a pretty substantial customer base. Those customers range from quite a few solo companies all the way to firms with more than 35 lawyers. So how did that grow in 2020? We added both our firms and users are up over 50% compared to the beginning of the year. So we've definitely kept those onboarding people busy as we've grown this year. And so what does that mean to you? What it means is that we get smarter every time we add a law firm to our system. And so we learn more about what customers need and customer needs are. We get smarter about how they how they work and what features they need. And that helps us to make our product better as we go along. So you may wonder kind of, how is LeanLaw financed? How do we, are we, well positioned financially for the future? And the answer to that is yes. We have about 30 investors in our company altogether. They're what you call angel investors. And, they're mostly in our community here in Boise, but Boise has a very strong tech presence. So we have people from Apple Computer and a bunch of other successful startups in the tech area who believe in our company and have invested in it, many of them over and over again as we've gone forward. We will also have the opportunity as we grow to add for more larger funding rounds as we go forward. And we look at that as, what's important in looking at funding like that is what does it allow us to bring to our customers that makes us better? So over the next year or two, you may hear that, we have venture funding. And that would be, and again, we're looking at that not as just a way to, get big, but more as a way to better serve our customers and to, help you. Many of you are pro advisors and accountants, to better serve your customers as well. So we really try to keep that focus. Can I get the next slide, please?
Yeah, and one little note there, Gary, is that I think what the takeaway for the group is that LeanLaw is at an inflection point that we've done the hard work to validate the business, prove the business, stabilize the business, and articulate its upside. And in that 5 years, now we're at that position where we have the opportunity to grow with different types of financial partners. And I think that's the most important note, is that Gary said, we're not doing it just to scale, we're doing it to grow smart. We've always done that way as we think to the future, but it is a time in the company where we have proven we have a successful business model. We've proven stability, good management team, really strong stickiness in our customers. And I think that's all really important about this inflection point. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, so thanks, Jonathan. That's a good clarification there. So let me just talk a little bit about our strategic vision. And we just adopted this mission statement recently at something I think resonates with our whole team. Is what we do is we help law firms become better businesses. Now, someday that may go beyond law firms, and we're talking about professional service firms, but right now, this is our focus. And so what does that mean? And what's the opportunity to make law firms better businesses? And this is something that I'm very passionate about as a practicing lawyer, because I've seen how far law firms have to go when it comes to this. So we have one opportunity, which is to increase the realization that law firms create out of their billings. The statistics in the industry are that law firms collect 75 to 80% of the time that they work on client matters. So there's basically leaving 20 to 25% of the money on the table at the beginning. There are studies that show that you can improve that dramatically by better timekeeping, better billing practices, taking retainers. And a lot of law firms may not want to consider that kind of change right now, but it's an enormous opportunity to improve the bottom line. And that's part of what we want to facilitate with our software. The second opportunity to make law firms better businesses is overhead. And so a law firm, this numbers are a few years old, but the average law overhead per lawyer in the United States a few years ago was about $160,000 per lawyer, and probably is higher than that now. And that is all manual processes that, not all of it, but a significant amount of it is. And when we've helped firms to adopt a lean business model, this was kind of where our name came from to begin with, is, to learn to operate efficiently as a firm. Law firm people have been able to lawyers have been able to cut their overhead by 50% or more. So they're leaving $50,000 to $100,000 on the table, a lot of them, just with higher overhead because they use traditional manual ways of doing things. The third area where there's an opportunity for improving law firms is productivity. So how much time does it take a lawyer to prepare and take a deposition or a contract? And how can that be improved with technology? We know there are folks on the line who specialize in this kind of help for law firms. And it's because of the way law firms keep their books, and they don't really have a good set of books a lot of the time. They can't tell you the answers to those questions, and as a result, can't tell you how to make those processes better. And so by making the numbers more transparent, we've got an opportunity to really increase the productivity. And I can guarantee you that every legal client out there would be grateful for that. And then the final thing, that the final opportunity for making law firms better businesses is by reducing risk. So, you know, you may, and I know of a law firm in my town here that invested $2 million in time in a client that didn't pay them. And, you know, there's, and a lot of law firms get into situations like that kind of unknowingly. And so being able to understand where the risks are in your client portfolio and elsewhere in your firm and addressing those is a really important opportunity for firms. So there's a lot that can be done. There was a study done by McKinsey Global a few years ago that talked about how efficient most firms are relative to their digital potential. And it found that throughout the American economy, businesses are operating about 18% efficiency. Now, if I was to look at a law firm, I'd probably say that's 10% efficiency, because they lag even below the average. So there's just an enormous opportunity to bring this profession into the 21st century and improve productivity, and we want to be part of that.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
Let's bring this back into LeanLaw, because you're talking about some, you know, big missions that we have, but what does that really mean? You know, when you're sitting in a law firm as an attorney, or some of these people are online, let's bring it back in and get it more connected to, well, how is LeanLaw doing this, right? So we have these aspirations, but what does it translate into day to day? I have some ideas, but I'm just kind of curious what, you know, explaining to the group.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to day to day. So what does that look like in terms of being more lean, or being more transparent, or mitigating risk? Let's give some examples.
So I mentioned this briefly, but realization is probably the #1 place where, you know, with what you have right now with LeanLaw, you could create great improvements, because, you know, with the workflow that LeanLaw creates, you have the opportunity to automatically take a trust retainer payment. You have an ability to track that and pay that, and, you know, add apps that would, you know, track those receivables and totally automate that workflow. And, you know, that is a great incentive for a law firm to say, you know, we really shouldn't be hiring a bunch of clients without retainers, or we at least should understand the risks when we do, and understand the WIP to retainer ratio, which is something that we track. And, you know, and it just makes it easy enough to make that feasible for a law firm where maybe it hasn't before. I mean, my own law firm has really good clients, but that happens to us too. And it's really just a matter of kind of laziness. So, I mean, that would be one idea. I mean, do you have something in mind?
Well, I think that, I think what you were getting at really is how it translates is that, you know, we're constantly listening to our customers. So if you talk about data transparency, the idea of millennials moving into having a stronger voice in the law firms and making that data accessible where it used to be sort of hidden behind a fence. Automation, you know, we're working with a large client to completely automate their compensation tracking. It's very complicated. And so something that was done manual is now being done in an automated way. And that data is now visible to the attorneys. So they have a better sense from the managing partners that communicating what that attorney is going to receive in compensation. So we're actually building architecture to facilitate automation that then translates into data transparency. And that data transparency might be, what am I going to make? To Gary's point, it might be a trust to WIP ratio. You know, what's my risk here in terms of collections? It might be a contingent matter where you can see live expenses. So we've created a workflow to capture those expenses. Now that workflow, that attorney from their, you know, laptop on the weekend can quickly click something and say, what's my load on that particular matter? So they can make a good decision there. So I think that, you know, what, from my perspective, it's to build a better business, we have to build automation and really smart workflows. We have to integrate really, really good tools and make those workflows easy enough so that the firms can adopt them. If we do that, we get good data and we get good results. And I think that's a core premise of making better businesses at LeanLaw. That idea of workflow creates data, data creates insights, and that decreases overhead, it mitigates risks, and it ultimately allows you to better utilize your staff. Let's keep going, Garen, because we're going to run out of time on this section.
Sure. Let me just talk really quickly about the kind of culture we're trying to build here in a couple of ways, because I think that's important.
Is this a slide you want up, the core platforms?
No, I don't. That's fine. I mean, I'll be talking about this in a second, but just a couple elements of that. I mean, one thing I learned coming into a software business that I probably didn't know before it was that software is a living thing, and you have to treat it like a living thing, or it dies, basically. I tell a story about a tool called Time Matters, which my firm used maybe 15 years ago. And when we first got it, we noticed that it made document lists that were oldest to newest. So you had to scroll through the whole document list in order to get to the new documents you really wanted to see. We asked them to flip that list so it went newest to oldest. And in 7 years of using that tool, they never did it. And so that was a real wake-up call to me to say, you've got to be, the software has to be continuously improving, and there has to be some transparency with your customers and your partners to make things like that happen, and also to create a community. That's one of the things we really want to do, is to have this a two-way street as to how we build this product so it best meets your needs. And so we work really hard at creating that kind of culture in the company. Now, the second thing is a culture of service. Especially when you're a young company like this and your software is, still has gaps that need to be filled and features that need to be built, you have to, you have to keep your customers happy and your partners happy by being very responsive in that world. And we hope we never lose that, but it's really important now. So we invite everybody in the company. We expect and invite that they will do the right thing by our customers all the time. And so, that's something we really value and we think is important. And we hope that you see that in the way that we work. If I could, so now let me just talk philosophy a little bit about how we build the software. In the legal space, you're competing a lot against all-in-one practice management tools. And we think that that's a mistake. I mean, I've used practice management software since the 90s, and I've never seen it really solve these problems that we talked about, or created, took advantage of the opportunities to improve legal businesses. And one of the reasons that they don't, in our view, is that they don't take full advantage of the core platforms that everybody uses. And in law firms, especially smaller law firms, that is QuickBooks, and for everybody, it's Microsoft. And so, we've worked really hard to build a strong relationship with Intuit. So to the point where we are now one of only 6 premium apps for QuickBooks Online Advanced. Can I show that really quickly, Jonathan?
Can you show what?
I wanted to show the app store, the premium apps.
Do you have a slide for it?
I don't have a slide, but if I can share, I can show it.
Gary, we're at, all right, 25
we're
minutes.
A little long here, so let me just pick it up. But anyway, we are in some pretty good company there with tools like Salesforce and Bill.com, and we are the only legal app that's achieved that. So that relationship's really valuable to us, and we want to really work that.
Hey, Gary, before you get off this slide, I want to interject something because there were, Lorette asked a question and it speaks to kind of our philosophy. So I'm going to interject something really quick here. She asked the question, what's the status on practice management features? And to answer, going back to Gary's question, is that we approach that from a mindset in 3 different kind of tones or 3 different tactics. The first tactic is, are there little features that we can build into LeanLaw that don't encompass practice management but satiate a need? The client that she's thinking about asked for case notes, a simple little note field that says what's the status of a case. So that's something that's on our roadmap, and we'll build that into it. Maybe different statuses of cases versus open and closed. So the one tactic is to build little features that aren't practice management, but they're more about the status of a client, and build those into LeanLaw. The second tactic is what Gary has up here, which is Microsoft 365. Google Apps for Work is a secondary platform that we're very interested in developing to. But if we talk about a platform of focus to extend LeanLaw's functionality, Microsoft 365 is really high on the list and in a very important agenda for the company. And what that means is our first attempts, which we have in beta right now, is about time tracking, meaning the opportunity to capture time in Microsoft 365. But when we look at second and third tiers, we're talking about the idea if we create a client in LeanLaw, maybe that passes over to a folder for that client in SharePoint, or maybe that creates a channel in Teams. So the idea that there's little workflows that we can trigger within Microsoft ecosystem. And then of course, the third is data and reporting. And we're really keen to learn about Microsoft BI as a data visualization tool. And it goes with this philosophy that if the team is working in a tool like Microsoft 365, LeanLaw needs to put its tentacles so that they can do what they need to do in that tool, yet pass the data back and forth between LeanLaw seamlessly. So the third tactic for practice management is to find very specific partners that meet a very specific market. And the best example of that is FileVine and contingent attorneys. FileVine is a very popular contingency focused practice management tool. And our clients have asked us, could we have integration with LeanLaw? And that would mean, hey, create a client in LeanLaw, create one in FileVine, hey, pass forward expense or other load information, cost load into FileVine for reporting. But the idea is they do what they do really well, and there's a bit of connective tissue that we can do. So those are the 3 tactics that we would do. What we won't do, to Gary's point, is just replicate a practice management. Karen asked about net documents. They're certainly a candidate for an integration partner. Law Toolbox is a candidate. So there's other very specific workflows that we see, and Fred's going to talk about a theme of 2021 in our engineering tactics about where we're headed in terms of opening up the platform and doing more integration. We're finally at that point where we're ready to do that. So Gary, I didn't mean to sidetrack you, but I wanted to answer the question because it fit in with this slide.
No, that does that well. I just want to make one other point here, which is, why do you care whether we have a relationship with Intuit? And the answer is that the more access we get, the more influence that we have, and we can help make their product better for law firms. The custom features that you see in QuickBooks Advanced are sort of the first example of that. First of what we hope are a number of examples of that, to make QuickBooks a better fit for law firms and to make our integration better. So let's pop over to the next slide, please.
Yeah, and you've got to wrap up, Gary, because I got to get to Fred.
Yep, exactly. So basically, philosophically, we believe in meaningful partnerships. You go on a lot, like a Clio website, you'll see they have 100 apps that they integrate with. But what do any of those mean? We've focused on a few that we think are really important and really provide value. So Gravity Legal to provide trust deposits. Our LeanLaw Accounting Pros, which many of you are part of, who provide critical accounting help. And then legal practice management, or legal management consultants like Gail Kersop at 4700 Group and Perform Law. We think they provide real value. And so if you see a partner on our website, it's going to be something important.
Yeah, and to augment that, why Gravity and not LawPay? Well, because Gravity partnered with us technically to build a completely automated workflow for a trust request, all the way into QuickBooks and back to LeanLaw. If we did that with LawPay, we couldn't achieve the same type of automation, so it's going to create manual work. So yes, it's easy for that some customers know the brand LawPay, but we couldn't get the deep integration and partnership that we wanted, and that's why we chose Gravity. Gary, any final thoughts on your side?
Well, let me just wrap up, and we talked about this, but how do we make law firms better? Go to the next slide, please. It's by improving workflows that then create data transparency and then data insights, and those insights can help solve those big problems that cost law firms so much money. So with that, let's turn it over to Fred.
Yeah, hey Fred, you're up.
Hey, what's up?
And don't do 30 minutes.
Don't worry. Yeah, so I'm just going to pick it up. Thanks for the opportunity here. I'm going to pick it up where Gary left off, workflows, data insights, and transparency, and just kind of look back at what we accomplished in 2020. In those areas, like we're miles from where we started in 2020 in terms of features and capabilities. We got a new mobile app, Gravity integration with trust requests that was already mentioned. On the transparency side, we built in a whole bunch of features that surface more information from QuickBooks into LeanLaw so that the attorney can see receivables and aging directly, trust transactions and other things like that. And so that you don't have the attorneys going into QuickBooks for this type of stuff. We also added a permission system that allows you to control some of the transparency for your users more accurately. And then on the data insight part, this is an area we really want to do a lot more in, which is what I'll talk about next. But we've made some strides here. One of the on the report side. One of the reports we're really proud of now is the revenue reports for compensation tracking. That's become a really solid offering with a lot of options for your firm to kind of control how you report on data from compensation point of view. We implemented QuickBooks Advanced Custom Fields. We're the only app currently that has access to this in the QuickBooks ecosystem. It's a start, but it's going to be great down the road in terms of enabling reporting in QuickBooks and also in LeanLaw along certain custom field parameters. Finally, we're in the process of rolling out an adjustment feature that's been overdue for a long time. Then behind the scenes here, there's a lot of stuff going on in what I call infrastructure. Security work to make sure that your data is safe. Performance, we can still do more here. Availability, which means how it's kind of similar to performance, but also quality in general is something we're working on, and we know we can do better on. So that's just a constant effort. Here.
So Fred, two quick questions. You said a lot of things, and I wanted to make one comment about attorney compensation because we talk about this idea of create workflow. Workflow creates transparency. Workflow creates insights. So with the compensation tracking, much of the improvement has come as a direct feedback from our clients asking for either more tracking and or more flexibility at the idea that we can set up terms for income origination tracking at the firm level, or we can go do it at the matter level. Fred even added different parts. So that not only fixed something that was being done manually by many firms, but in addition to it, it created this greater layer of data transparency. So the firm's attorneys who are heavily compensated by their billable and collected income are there, they can see it visually. But Fred, as you look back at 2020, and you think about the work, like what was most important to you? Not necessarily like, is there something that you're really proud of, or you something said like, we did this and that's going to stage 2 more years of growth, or this is a great example of something that like, this is where I want the product to go, and this will kind of segue into your next slide.
Good question. I think what I'm probably most proud of is that we now have a team in place to accelerate our development going forward. We didn't have a lot of resources in the beginning of the year, so focus was to build more of a capability to respond to clients and to have some quality product that's performing and so on. And so I was struggling with that in the beginning of the year, but now I feel we have a team in place that can take this forward. So that's I think what I'm most proud of and most excited about going forward.
And then from a technological standpoint, what feature do you think, like what feature was like the hardest thing you did that you're most proud of from an implementation standpoint?
That probably is the revenue by attorney report, which sounds simple, but it's quite complex to essentially take every single collected dollar amount from QuickBooks and then decide how to distribute that based on the details of an invoice and various settings in the firm, put it into all these little buckets, and then end up with a report that's actually useful at the end of the day. Yeah. And a report that doesn't take 3 hours to generate. There's another little detail. But
I also think
that's quite challenging technically.
Yeah, and I think that also the idea that you have the revenue by attorney report, but then listening to that one client saying, hey, I need more, I need the underlying detail, and you being able to give the client that click, and now they have all of the data there. So Darlene, I'll get to that question in a second. Let's go to next, Fred. So let's go to what we're looking at moving forward.
What's next? Yeah, so 2021 and beyond, honestly. So I wanted to kind of paint a vision for the product, and it's sort of at a very high level. It ties into a lot of what Gary was talking about, but we want LeanLaw to kind of work seamlessly with all the other systems that you depend on. I mean, we're very focused on, or have been very focused on QuickBooks. We're probably we've started looking at Microsoft 365 as a platform to integrate with, but the list is quite long there, and we have a strategy of ours is to integrate with things as opposed to best of breed apps in your ecosystem, as opposed to kind of replicate what they do. Then there's the data insight part, and this is where I said I think we can do so much more. Our reporting currently is a little bit tactical. It's a bunch of lists of things and numbers and people, and you can drill in and filter by date and find your stuff. Kind of nerdy. Export to Excel and fiddle around. Now, what we really want is to surface some more of a dashboard is not the right word, but to kind of bring forward some of the data so it's more actionable. This might be clearly showing which clients might be worth looking at taking a retainer for to reduce risk, or maybe some of the productivity numbers, bring that more out in the open and something a little more visual. So we've been working on that for a while, but we're not there yet, and that's something we really want to make strides on here in 2021.
And I'm going to interject something here, Fred, is that the challenge for a firm like ours is to balance the incoming features that people are asking for in terms of reporting. And you've got to think about, hundreds of firms and the diversity of the practices, and some attorney sitting behind her desk saying, I want this specific data, and bombarding us with a question compared to the vision of where we want to go. So this inherent challenge is that we're trying to be receptive to the client's needs and saying, okay, we can add this field or add this add this data point, and balance that against the vision of where we're going. And that's the challenge that we face, Fred and I, directly on a day-to-day basis of negotiating what to do next. Real quick question, Fred, from the group, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want you to speak to it at least, or I will. Darlene asked about tax calculations in QuickBooks. So the idea that, right now we have to send the invoice and taxes applied. This is obviously important to Canadian-based customers and those in New Mexico and South Dakota. A secondary question is the trust statement, which, Darlene, I'm happy to answer independently, but just talk a little bit of that in the context of where you're headed with QuickBooks integration, and where will that change maybe in the year ahead.
The invoice trust workflow has some gaps currently, like the ones mentioned, and I mean, the answer is quite complex because it's a lot of there's a lot of things we have done here and that we still need to do to just smoothen out the manual steps. So the things mentioned are things we're working on. There's also some other gaps, like not being able to undo trust deposits from LeanLaw and some other things. We want to ultimately, our goal is to have all those operations fully automated from LeanLaw, so you don't have to go into QuickBooks or not have any manual steps. And that's the goal. I'll be the first one to admit we're not quite there yet. So that doesn't really answer the question, but
yeah, exactly. It's so funny how me, the sales guy, would answer the question, how the engineer answers it. Let me put it this way, to augment what Fred says. We explicitly know that we need more integration with QuickBooks, and we explicitly know that there's some gaps in the trust side. You know, executing a trust disbursement from LeanLaw is high on the list. And getting that tax calculation for a few different reasons. There's some other things related to activity in QuickBooks that if we tracked it, if we could see it at the function of draft, would be very useful. You know, I would say that it's probably going to surface in 2021 to put that up on the list and really consider it. So I think it's really high because it really benefits obviously our existing Canadian companies, but it also opens up Canada as a market opportunity. So there's a lot of tension or a lot of opportunity on that specific feature to say, hey, let's move forward with it. Fred, I want you to just kind of close and answer this question, which is, at the end of 2021, you know, is there one or two things that you feel like, hey, this is what I'm most excited, or this is where I hope the product to be?
I mean, it's back to those two highlights, the integrations, a better integration probably with Microsoft 365, and an open API that allows third parties to talk to our product without us being involved, and creating solutions there. And then also more on data, surfacing data. Yeah. Again, it's back to those same.
And the two other things I would add is we're going to get better at testing and testing architecture in 2021 to make sure that we're sending out code that is clean as possible. And I also would expect there to be some user interface work to be done in 2021 in terms of making the user experience a bit tighter. Okay, thanks, Fred. I don't mean to rush, but I want to make sure that we get through.
I'm going to go back to the clean shaven version of me here.
Yeah,
there you go.
All right, Mamie, you and I are going to do this one too. We wanted to take the time because there's many folks who are part of our LeanLaw Accounting Pro community. Mamie joined us in this year, 2020. It's one of our biggest achievements this year, was not only sourcing and finding her, but adding this role in the company as a permanent role. So we're really feel fortunate to have her. I'm going to let Mamie lead this conversation, but because I'm very integrated, I might chirp in as I always do and add a few comments. So Mamie, you're on.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. I'm kind of filling in for Tracy, who wasn't able to be here. And most of you have, the LAPs anyway, have probably worked with Tracy before, but the marketing team also supports Tracy and the LAP program. So we have three pillars of the program really that I want to speak to: education, collaboration, and community. And so when we speak to education, it's really about making sure that the LAP community has the resources that they need and the product knowledge that they need to go out and speak effectively about the tool and understand the need that it fills. And then on the collaboration side, actually community really is next. And on the community side, that's speaking to really building deep relationships between, the LeanLaw team, the marketing team, Tracy, you, Jonathon, as well, and the LAPs themselves, so that we have great relationships and can leverage those relationships in that third pillar of collaboration, which is really about working together, leveraging that community to go out and serve the law firm market and serve your law firm clients. So on the education front, there's just overall in 2020, there's been a ton happening behind the scenes and a ton of strategy and work being done on the LAP program. And you'll see a lot of this coming to life early 2021 and first quarter 2021. So that's going to be a really big year for the LAP program overall. So on the education front, some of you might have seen this already, but there's the LMS, the Learning Management System, which Tracy's done the bulk of the work behind that, so that we now have on the right side there's those 3 badges. We now have formal accreditation so that you can come in and level up from bronze, silver to gold. And each of those has a different set of benefits. It means a different set of things. And all of that will be kind of formally launched in early 2021. And then also on the education front, we did this year the Fogelman webinars. Next year, we'll be doing a 6-part series with Lauren Fogelman. So that will be 5 strategies to 3x your accounting business in 2021. And we're really excited about that. So that'll be 5 strategies. And then the 6th one will be a recap of that and a planning session for 2022. And then we also on the education front do the monthly meetups, which we bring in SMEs like Chelsea Williams, Brian from Perform Law to speak to particular topics. And we do those on a monthly cadence. And then on the community front, we're doing a number of different things. We have 2 workshops planned for 2021 to really focus on how accounting firms can sell to law firms. We're also, and this ties into the education piece, but we're also going to be equipping all of the LAPs with sales collateral, with LeanLaw sales collateral, so that they have relevant content and they're not having to create it from scratch, so they can speak effectively to the product when they're talking to their law firm clients. And then we're also planning a day of LeanLaw next year, towards the end of the year, where we'll be bringing the LAP community together, some law firm clients as well, and just dive into everything LeanLaw. So we're really excited about that. And we're already, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that day is really important. So it's not just all about LeanLaw. It's about, some of it will be, we'll probably ask Lauren to come in and talk about packages and how to package yourself in terms of approaching law firms, understanding what law firm requirements are. So Gary might be speaking specifically to like what are law firms. So we're taking some of the content that we did at the last year's QuickBooks Connect and bringing it into like a half-day Zoom meeting with this community with the idea around collaboration, community, and education. So yeah, it's not just about like learning about LeanLaw, it's about really learning about the legal community and how to service and sell to them.
Yeah, and I anticipate someone from Intuit will probably participate as well and be speaking to the relationship there. And then also on the community front, we're exploring options for a portal where all the LAPs can come together and network in a closed space together, share information. We can kind of have a document repository where you can access everything that you need, all within a closed space. So we're planning to roll that out in 2021 as well. And then lastly, on the collaboration front, we're planning the workshops I talked about. We're also going to be improving the LAP search page, which has a lot of room for improvement. So we're going to make it easier for law firm clients to find LAPs and make it a smarter search. And so we're working on the infrastructure behind that to roll that out in coordination with rolling out these 3 levels of tiers of LAPs. And then really on the collaboration front, what we'll be focusing on for 2021 is turning to the LAP community for help with onboarding. As we grow and scale, we'll need more help. As we being LeanLaw, the LeanLaw team will need more help, and we'll be relying more and more on the LAP community to assist with the onboarding and building those relationships with the law firm clients.
Yeah, Chase is going to speak to customer success next, but I think the main theme that I want to speak to this, because I've been stewarding this program from its inception, is that the accounting community is a critical voice. And one of the things I do when I sell LeanLaw is the idea that the accounting community is a customer. And I think that's different than some of the other law tools, in that they see them as sort of an add-on, but not necessarily a true voice in what the product should be, how it should be stewarded. And we don't do anything without vetting, especially from accounting perspective, to this community. So, we're a small company. We have resources and resource management, but we continue to be very vested in this community to collaborate and to cooperate with each other. And as Mamie said, we see opportunities as clients are onboarding onto LeanLaw to bring in this community. We see opportunities even down the road, it's supporting and whatnot. So that's super, super important to us, and we will launch a few new initiatives. That sales piece is really important to me because I heard people specifically ask, hey, how do I present LeanLaw? How do I overcome these objections? How do I get help when I'm onboarding a client to LeanLaw? And there's a lot of inertia that they want to, go out and represent LeanLaw and introduce it to a client, but there's that idea that, I feel a little uncomfortable as the accounting partner because I don't know the tool well. So that, and the other thing that maybe didn't mention is that we've made a commitment to award at least 75 of these badges that you see on the right-hand side of your screen this year. And that's a big change. I mean, when we first started the program, it was very loosey-goosey. Now we're asking people to go through an LMS and go through a very explicit certification program so that people can differentiate who is a gold member, someone who's been doing this for a long time, someone like, Linda Artesani is a good example of someone like that, and who is just getting going, and how do you get from here to there, and that program is what we're building. And we're not perfect, and we appreciate everyone's patience on this because there's a lot of different agendas in the company that we're all trying to steward forward. Mamie, do you have any, did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
Cool.
That's all I had.
And Karen asked, is certification testing starting? It's already happening, Karen. You had asked, and we're following through on your question. So it's already started with people going through the LMS, and there's already a certification program. So we're in process with that. All right, I'm going to shift gears because we're getting through the hour here and bring in my colleague, Chase Sullivan. And I think the most important thing before I introduce Chase is that we don't believe, and we're going to be changing this whole word of support and shifting it to success. I know that sounds corny, but we don't see support as a passive thing. We think it as client success. The idea that how do we help a client be successful? And a client, again, could be an accounting partner, and a client could be the actual law firm. But how do we help them be successful? Mr. Chase, you're on.
Hello. Nobody told me we're changing the title. I got to go back and update all of my LinkedIn and business cards.
Yep. Sorry. Introducing it today.
Thanks. I wanted to start out real quick just by kind of reintroducing Tracy and Chris, both fortunate enough to triple the size of our support team over the last year, and they have both been very, very critical in how much we've been able to grow and progress over this last year. Like Tracy's has been mentioned, she's accounting focused, working with our accounting pros, and really before Tracy, we really didn't have a great support mentality or resource for accounting, and she has been so important to helping fill that gap. So we're very appreciative of that. And then Chris, who's the newest addition, is really exciting. He comes from a background of law software, always full of ideas and interesting ways to solve new problems or support and engage with our users. So super excited to be working with them both newly this year. Next slide. Thank you. Cool. So as quickly as I can, one of the biggest differentiators we've tried to make with our support or success is expressing the value and how users means to us. That, our ability to have a conversation and talk about it and take that feedback and take advantage of how alive the software is and use that to drive changes or improvements or have conversations about what our users want to see. And that comes from the success team and our ability to take those conversations and figure out, what we need to do with those to make it happen. So up top, there's a quote. We actually got on one of our review sites talking about how important it was for this particular individual that we use feedback for driving our software.
Chase, I think we just lost your audio.
Can you hear me now? No?
Yes, you're coming through with me.
Did we just have a technical glitch? Oh,
I
think
can
we
hear
lost
you.
Jonathon.
Oh, maybe it was my side.
Yeah, Chase, we can hear you, so keep
You're
going.
good.
Okay, I'll keep going.
Sorry, Chase.
Yep, no worries. Yeah, so driving home the point that feedback is really important. It's not just a void that you're throwing your thoughts and opinions on. We actually open the comments box and use that in meetings with engineering on a weekly basis when talking about, internally how we can improve or provide additional resources, especially from our LAP group. I mean, you folks are the ones dealing with a lot of what we're trying to solve, and being able to have those conversations really informs our decisions from an engineering perspective or from how we can better support you and your users on a day-to-day basis. So that working together and that teamwork is very important. I do also want to really quickly go through a couple of the things we saw this year from that comment box. Some pretty significant changes, actually. We had a lot of interest in user permissions, especially early on with our firms. The size of our average firm growing, more and more firms wanted that control of individual users or what users could or couldn't do. And so we were able to take that and come up with a solution now that we call user permissions, and really expanding on that functionality. Another one, which I'm actually a super fan of, is the trust request functionality, like Jonathon touched on earlier with Gravity Legal. Previously, QuickBooks kind of had a gap there, and so we were able to work with Gravity on providing an in-house, super easy to use trust request option. And again, listening to our users, our attorneys, but also our accountants who were not thrilled with the current offerings. So, and then lastly, the batch invoice delivery options. The QuickBooks tab inside of LeanLaw, we've added lots of functionality to cater towards things like leads billing or delivering invoices straight out of LeanLaw. And again, that came from feedback from our users. So we wouldn't have known that was important or of value. And so, you know, having that feedback there brings, if you ask for it, Fred and the engineering team normally pretty good about getting it added in a short order. And that's really exciting to see happen.
You just have to know when to ask Fred if he's in a good mood or not. Then you can get it committed to. I've learned that in the last 5 years.
There are special days of the week where he will take more client requests. You just have to know. And there's a punch card too.
Yeah. All right.
Next.
You ready for the next slide?
I am. Cool. And then real quick, just pop through some goals that we've got over here with the success team at LeanLaw. Many of you have probably seen or participated in some of the product webinars we've hosted over the last couple of months, where we talk about new features, big releases, or even smaller changes that we've seen over the last month in a product. So we'll continue to do those. We've also changed the way we do our FAQ or knowledge base articles. So some of the ideas Chris brought were ways to improve the way we display or present that information. You'll be seeing an increase in YouTube videos or demonstrations of new apps and places across the software. And a favorite of mine is the little GIF images quickly showing and instructing on how to do or perform or use new features throughout the software. So training, Intercom, the tool that we use for support, has been fantastic about rolling out new features that allow us to better support and engage with our users, one of which is product tours. This allows us to do some in-app or hands-on training with new features, so that instead of having to read something or ask the team, hey, can I get a demo? You'll now have the option to do a little bit of a self-guided tour and walk through some of the new offerings, engineering releases for us. And in complementary to that, some in-app learning like tooltips or pop-ups, helping you kind of naturally figure out how things work or where things go. And then lastly is getting smarter with automation. So we do live in a digital age where bots are everywhere. You'll probably interacted with some of our chat bots, which some of the team refers to as my pets. They'll see me testing and messing around with them. It is like dogs sometimes. But
Smart.
training. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, training those bots to help speed up the process of getting a question answered, or directing resources when needed, so that you don't have to wait for a team member to hop on and help. The bots will be able to jump in and help quite quickly. So
cool. Thanks, Jace. And I think I want to wrap up because we're here. I was going to throw a question back to Gary, but I'm just going to do it myself. So I hope at the end of today you got a sense of what we got done in 2021 and where we hope to grow. I will say that when you see things like resolution bots and Chase speaking that as a function of success, it's not to try to displace the level of service and human interaction that we have. It's meant to augment. And as we think about our growth, I mean, I can say this, we are thrilled with the position we're in, both in our relationship with Intuit and how that's blossomed over the last year, our fiscal health and our business model working, our customers being our greatest advocates. We feel in a really strong position as a company, and we are going to grow. What we are not going to do is go raise a bunch of money and grow for the sake of growth. We're not going to throw in and start buying ads. So you will never see that in LeanLaw. Our growth intends to be smart, targeted, and efficient. That's the way we built our business, and we're going to continue to do that growth in that way. That's just our DNA. That's who we are. And you know, I know we can't be everything to everybody. We can't make every feature for everyone, but I will tell you, Fred, Gary, and I and the team are committed to listening to everything that people ask for and trying to bring those smarts and insights into the product. We do that every day, and we will always do that as a function of the culture of our company. So we really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to us and participate in this call. If I didn't cover something that you wanted covered, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm just Fishman, Fishman @myleanlaw.com, or just go into the chat tool and say, hey, can you pass this question to Jonathon? We will always answer any question to the best of our ability. So thank you, LeanLaw team, for participating in your work and getting ready to this. Thank you, LeanLaw community, for attending today's show. And I'm going to end the meeting today. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day and have a lovely holiday season. To everyone, please be safe. And to 2021, may we all say goodbye to 2020. Take care, everyone.